welcome to Awesemo Fantasy Football. Are you tired of the industry consensus? Are you sick of that groupthink mentality? Then try our data-driven approach spearheaded by the world's #1 daily fantasy football player, Alex Awesemo Baker. Alex has loaned his projections expertise creating our first ever set of season-long fantasy football rankings. Head over to awesemo.com to find out more about our different approach to fantasy football. Now let's dive into how those rankings would attack drafting from the 107. At the 107, we've had a handful of elite running backs already go off the board, plus Michael Thomas, basically as ADP would dictate. So Derrick Henry at the 107 is the pick here. Derrick Henry was just an absolute beast last year in 2019. He was ripping off long runs and chunk yardage at will. He averaged 4.1 yards per carry after contact. From the time a defender attempted to bring down Derrick Henry to the time he actually went down, he gained an extra 4.1 yards. That's more than some running backs average on their entire carry. Derrick Henry at 107 makes a lot of sense here. At the 206, Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is a guy that Awesemo's rankings love getting in the second round. There are just so few difference makers at tight end, and Travis Kelce is clearly the cream of the crop of them. He was the tight end 1 in 3 of the past 4 seasons, and the one time he missed the tight end 1 mark, the tight end 1 overall mark, he was the tight end 2 overall. He's an absolute killer at the tight end position. He has 2 of the 10 best ever tight end seasons by yards and receptions. There's really no reason you don't project him to be the tight end 1 overall again in 2020. At the third round pick, we have Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is a guy Awesemo's projections love reaching on. Kupp had an incredible year last year, catching 94 passes, going over 1,100 yards, and scoring 10 times. He also had an insane 220-yard game. And he did this while, splitting a bit of time with Brandon Cooks or a second tight end on the field, like a Gerald Everett. With Cooks out of town and Tyler Higbee clearly cementing himself as the better tight end out of the two, we should expect to see Kupp on the field for almost the entirety of their snaps. There's no reason he can't improve on his 94 catches and his 1,100 yards based on how much he was just getting taken off the field, unfortunately, last year. At the 407, Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette has this reputation as a plotter, as a grinder, but he was used in all phases of the game last year. He finished second in the league with 22.7 touches per game. That was largely on the back of 76 catches, a new career high for Fournette. He was also the 4th red zone running back in usage, getting 54 touches. On a team that really rarely made it inside their opponent's 20, getting that type of league-leading volume is pretty incredible. He is one of the cheapest premium bell cows you can get. We're buying volume here with the 4th-round selection. At the 506, Raheem Mostert, and we got Raheem Mostert a few rounds later in a draft previous in this series, but with Mostert signing a bit of an extension or getting a little extra cash from the 49ers, there's no uncertainty that he won't be the lead back here, but he is still a great pick. He was taken 2 spots. He's still a great pick here. Mostert was clearly the best option. T.Y. Hilton, if he had made it here, would have been awesome as well. But Mostert averaged 89.4 yards and 1.4 scores in his final 8 games, including the playoffs. He's the best option. He's likely to regress in 2020. He'll break a few less long runs, but that's more than baked into the cost here. Based on hundreds of real drafts, we broke down the data, and one of Carson or Bell makes this pick in roughly a quarter of drafts. Those odds aren't great, but it was worth the gamble, so it's fine missing out on them getting the consolation prize of Raheem Mostert. At the 607, Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, not a guy that Awesemo's rankings are overly high on, but he ends up falling a bit here, and he is incredibly efficient. That's not surprising. He's an incredible route runner, and he beats players deeper down the field than more shallow route runners like a Michael Thomas. Only A.J. Brown topped Diggs' mark of 12 yards per target last year, but Diggs saw a few more overall targets. He is able to be so incredibly efficient as his team's #1 receiver. We should see that again in Buffalo as he becomes his team's #1 receiver up north. Moving over to the 706, AJ Green is the pick here. Green has definitely had his struggles with injuries in recent years, but his talent is absolutely undeniable. While catching passes almost exclusively from Andy Dalton, a true backup level quarterback, now a backup in Dallas, Green has still averaged 80.2 yards per game over his career. Now he gets undoubtedly an upgrade in Joe Burrow, who's talented enough to immediately be a better player than Dalton has been from week 1 of his rookie season. There's a substantial amount of risk for Green, but the upside is just too great to pass on here. At the 807, we get our quarterback. This might be a bit of a reach based on ADP, but Awesemo's projections are just in love with Matt Ryan, and I don't disagree. Our projections have him attempting more passes than any other quarterback in the league by nearly 2 throws per game. His 41.5 attempts per game are still what we're projecting him, a conservative outlook based on what we saw just from the Falcons last year. They attempted 42.8 pass attempts per game last year, the only team to even get over 40. So even when you bake in a bit of coming back down to earth for Matt Ryan, he still crushes the league in the amount of times he is passing the football. He's got the league's best receiving duo in Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. Expect another top 5 season from Matt Ryan. And we get a little bit of a stack here at the 906. Another, maybe a reach based on ADP, but Awesemo's projections still find value in this pick. Absolutely loving Hayden Hurst. He probably won't be a 1-for-1 replacement of Austin Hooper, a talented tight end in his own right. But at this cost, he doesn't have to be an absolute replacement for Austin Hooper to return value. Hooper was targeted 97 times in 13 games last year, and he caught 75 passes for nearly 800 yards. If Hurst captures just a decent portion of that volume, he'll be a top 5 tight end, much like Awesemo's projections have him nearly getting to. In the 10th round, final pick of the top 10 rounds that we're showing off in this draft, Phillip Lindsay is the pick. An alternative could have been Mike Williams. We ultimately decided on Lindsay. Awesemo's projections don't really see Lindsay owning a fantasy-relevant role from week 1, but the rankings recognize that his situation is pretty unique. Lindsay has averaged 4.9 yards per carry en route to over 2,000 yards through 2 seasons with the Denver Broncos. Melvin Gordon joined the team after a shortened offseason, and he posted only 1 season over 4 yards per carry in the past 5 years. He doesn't get a chance to integrate with the team, and he hasn't been efficient with the team he was with previously. If Lindsay doesn't surpass Gordon on the depth chart, his role really won't matter. It won't make him fantasy relevant, but there is a real chance that he's just a better outright running back than Melvin Gordon, and Awesemo's rankings project that to be in the range of outcomes. This team is easily set on running backs, so the remaining picks would be devoted to finding some production from some breakout receivers. Awesemo's rankings are particularly fond of guys like James Washington and N'Keal Harry, so you could see those guys coming in the 11th, 12th, 13th round to this team. Guys, thanks for checking out another Awesemo Fantasy Football video. Don't forget to hit that like button and comment with your favorite sleeper breakout wide receiver that you would want to see this team take in the later rounds. And of course, head on over to awesemo.com/fantasyfootball to sign up for our draft kit. It includes a bunch of awesome stuff, including our rankings, projections, cheat sheets, and the draft wingman, which helps you build optimal lineups for your best ball and season-long drafts. You get all of this for just $29.95, so go on over and check it out. Thanks for tuning in.